Listen to what Indiana Superachievers have to say. Discover what drives them to succeed. Seek what makes them different. Their stories will inspire you to reach higher and excel faster. Find out why they think Indiana is the best state for starting a business or for students starting their careers.
Hello everyone, my name is Sam Horton and I'm a senior at PFW's Domer School of Business. Today I have the chairman and CEO of Star Financial, Jim Marcuccilli. Jim graduated from Notre Dame with his bachelor's degree in business administration and finance. Jim was born in Indiana and he's committed to maintaining a strong financial footprint to the communities of northeastern Indiana. Today we hope to figure out a little more about Jim and just why he's such a super achiever. Jim, thank you so much for meeting with us today. How are you?
Appreciate it, Sam. Thanks for inviting me here today.
Of course. Now, I feel like I want to know you a little bit better. Can you tell me about your life growing up, maybe your first job, or what kind of put that entrepreneurial spirit in you?
Well, I grew up in Marion, Indiana, and a very large family of 7 children. And my father and my uncle were very entrepreneurial. Their primary business was transportation. They were in the short haul business, what people today would refer to a FedEx or a UPS service, because they'd bring everything in at night, unload a truck, reload, and deliver the next morning. But growing up, we were involved in a number of businesses. So I always think my first job was really working for my brothers. I had 2 older brothers, and they both had paper routes. And so when they had sporting events, I got to the luxury of passing their papers in the local neighborhoods that we grew up in. Spent most of my time through school doing various jobs and playing sports, but most of the jobs were customer service related. Mm-hmm. They were in the restaurant industry, the novelty business. We had an amusement park that our family operated in the city of Marion, and drive-in theater. So I got pretty much an all-round experience and didn't really start working in the bank till my sports calendar freed up, because my dad wasn't going to let me go in and take off every afternoon to go play baseball.
Yeah.
So when I started to be a junior in high school is when I started working at the bank, and started out as a teller and worked in the back room and did things of that nature all through the process of learning banking.
And can you tell me a little bit more about your school? What kind of challenges you faced while going through getting your bachelor's at Notre Dame?
Well, I always say my claim to fame at Notre Dame was a little different than most others. I went to Notre Dame hoping I was going to get to play baseball, and didn't get to make that, but I did have an extremely good academic career at the university. So my senior year, I decided to drop out of the athletic opportunity of baseball, you might say. And my roommates and I decided that we would run for class officers. And when we didn't get the class officers winning the ballots, we turned to another opportunity, and I got chosen to be the manager of the student bar. So if you ever want to have a really good career of service and meeting all of your classmates, running a student bar in college is a pretty good career.
So be a bartender.
Opportunity. Yep, I was a bartender.
So after college, what kind of early challenges did you face early in your life?
I had a couple of challenges. One, obviously, I came back to work for the family business, and just like anybody else that's in a family business, probably garnering the respect of other people that you work with, because they know you're the boss's son, and they treat you a little differently, and you're trying to say, no, don't do that. And that would have been the biggest challenge, was trying to gain respect. I also wanted to take some time and travel and also work somewhere else in the country, and unfortunately I never got that opportunity. I had a brother between me and my brother Tom who passed away suddenly in December of 73, so consequently I never left Marion.
Right.
But I'd have to say it's been a great career and good opportunity to be in the family business.
Definitely. So while going off of that, since you were trying to gain respect, did you have any role models that you kind of looked up to, be it your dad or someone you just never met, people you've read about, that kind of guided you through rough times, or just kind of made you the man that you are today?
Well, I had multiple mentors. I would have to tell you my mom was extremely important in my life growing up, because my father worked quite long weeks and long hours, even though we worked in the various businesses and got to be around him and see him. My mother was really kind of the person in charge of the household.
Of course.
And not only that, she was a very talented athlete. So she could tell you pretty much what you were doing wrong when you were playing sports. So I had a good role model there. My father obviously would be the number one mentor that I had when I grew up, especially working in the business. I probably took on the characteristics of my mother, being more of a cheerleader and coach, and my dad was just very quiet, approachable, very thoughtful about what he'd do and how he went about business. One person always said about my dad, he's the type of person that if you made a mistake, he never yelled at you, never complained about what you did, but he sure made you feel bad because he said, if you had to do that over, would you do the same thing?
Yeah. That's the next question I wanted to ask you. Not as a challenge, but did you face any kind of pivotal moment with you in the bank when maybe you kind of took over, or when you started getting more respect among your peers and taking over authority-wise? Was there any kind of pivotal moment or difference in direction that you wanted Star Financial to go?
Well, I would tell you that Star Financial is not about Jim Marcuccilli. It's really about the two families, the Marcuccellis and the Wrights. And probably that change moment would have been when my father had passed away, and the next mentor I had was Bob Wright, who's currently retired, lives in Shirley, Indiana. And Bob was a very competitive banker at the time. Banking back then was a very regulated environment, very restricted in the 70s and up until the mid-80s, when finally the banking laws changed and you were allowed to branch across county lines.
Right.
So that change occurred because Bob was competitive. My brother and I were working together. We were running the back room and overseeing most of the day-to-day operations of the banks. And that was a unique opportunity at the time, because when we wanted to grow it, Bob and his brother Kenny were like, okay, let's see what we can do, and let's take the opportunity. And then it was a little over 19 years ago when we made the decision to leave Marion, Indiana, and to move the bank franchise and the charter here to Fort Wayne. So
you kind of pulled up your bootstraps and got to work.
I always refer to the strategic move of leaving Marion to come to here. I took the role of going in and talking to the employees and explaining to them why we thought there would be a better opportunity for us to grow the bank and continue it into the next generations. And I turned to my brother and I said, well, you're the oldest one. You go tell my mother we're leaving town. So I left him with that duty.
See how she takes it, definitely.
Well, and her mind was pretty open-minded. She said, you know, your dad probably would have said, what took you so long?
Just now? Well, come on, guys. Since we're on the subject of Star Financial, can you tell me just maybe the history, where it started and where it is today?
Sure. We just finished our 75th year in being in banking. It started when my dad and uncle and their partner, Cecil Wright and Art Hodson, bought a failed bank branch in Upland, Indiana in 1943. They were not in banking, had no intentions of being in banking, and probably today would never have realized that it's grown to be what it is. So the history was they started there. They acquired 8 other small banks throughout the northeast Indiana, pretty much rural areas, not what I would call Indianapolis or the Fort Wayne markets. And as the banking laws changed, it gave us the opportunity to grow into those markets. So today we're a little over $2 billion in assets. We have a large insurance agency that has a pretty good sized premium footprint throughout northeast Indiana. And then we have a wealth management team.
Definitely.
As well.
And speaking of that, is there anything you would have done different now that you are sitting here today with Star Financial? Is there anything you wish you could do over?
You know, you never really think about do-overs, because the things you did do, if you didn't learn from them, if they made a mistake, you know, you just got to go with the flow. And I don't think we would sit back today and say, should we have done something different? A lot of people have asked us, why didn't we go to Indianapolis instead of coming to Fort Wayne? And to be very honest, Fort Wayne looked like a better market at the time, and the opportunity to grow the bank was much better. Today, we now have a big footprint, and the majority of our customer base is now in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne versus the markets we started in.
How important is investing in your community? I mean, how important is that to Star Financial?
Well, banking is an economic, financial, right?
Of course.
And if the market itself doesn't grow and the community isn't healthy and the demographics of jobs don't continue to grow and wages don't increase, that penalizes us in the banking world.
Of course.
That's not good.
No,
And
you don't want that.
so it's important for us to be involved with economic growth, with financial literacy, things that we feel very near and dear to, particularly education, because we feel very strongly that education allows us to continue to grow and change.
Right.
So the more people we have with good backgrounds and good educations, the better off the community is. And so that's why we support a lot of those activities.
Are you excited to see the changes in Fort Wayne happening? Or more, the better question is, why do you stay in Northeastern Indiana?
Well, I stay in Northeast Indiana. I think it's a great place to raise a family.
It is.
I mean, my wife and I have been married for over 43 years. I've got 3 grown children. 2 of them are still here. One lives in Indianapolis, and he's trying to transfer back to Fort Wayne. So, you know, my brother's here, our families are here. So it's just a great place to raise and grow a family. All the excitement that's going on right now, you know, you kind of have to see it went in a cycle. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the 3 largest institutions sold, that changed the dynamics of downtown, changed the philanthropy when the corporate office of Lincoln left Fort Wayne. But now all of a sudden you've seen a reversal of that. You've seen families, you've seen a lot of people reinvesting in this community, which is very critical. And it's fun. It's pretty exciting to be able to walk around and see the cranes up in the air and hear all the cement trucks rolling through town. I mean, nobody likes to have their street cut off once in a while. But,
no, of course.
But you know, that's progress, and that's important for this community. And if we're going to continue to be vibrant, we've got to do the things we're doing now and make investments and take some risk.
Is there anything else you'd like to see Fort Wayne keep doing or to do that they haven't really talked about yet?
Well, I always had one thought when I came here, and I could never understand why we did not have an interstate that went through downtown. Now, that's probably a 30 or 40-year project, but there's plenty of railroad tracks that don't get used in downtown, and I'd love to see a way to connect the center of the city with a major thoroughfare coming through the middle of it. Now, some people would say that would lose all the aesthetics, the fun of the city, the neighborhoods, but personally, I think that's one of the biggest economic development tools. If they could figure that out, it would really make this community thrive.
Well, wasn't that why they built 69? They thought that would drive more.
They built 69 because it was part of the interstate system that was being built across the country.
Yeah.
But my understanding is the local authorities and other people thought it would split the city.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of cities, yes, it has caused differences. But if you look at some of the vibrant cities, they've utilized that freeway system to grow and revitalize neighborhoods that didn't have a chance to revitalize. And I think when you ask things that are really exciting, I know Electric Works is a big project. It's a massive project, but it's a good 10 to 15 year project that it's going to do so many good things for the neighborhoods that those buildings are sitting in today.
Yeah, and I hope Star Financial keeps moving forward and investing in that part of town, because I think it's definitely has a lot of potential. Coming from the 07, I have a
I have the next generation coming on board, so I think they've already got thoughts of doing that.
So can you tell me, back to Star Financial, any recent accomplishments you'd like to talk about that Star Financial is proud of?
Well, we went over $2 billion in assets this past year, which was really exciting to have the bank grow to that size. Probably we've been in the forefront of technology. And if you look around or use any of our facilities and go through one of our drive-ups, we have what we call ITMs. They're interactive and intelligent teller machines. So when you pull up to the drive-up, you touch the screen, you talk to a live person, and none of those people are on property. But all of the machines can do any transaction you want them to do with the client, with the customer, and it allowed us to expand our operation to be open 6 days a week, 7 to 7 every day.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a neat thing. The really nice part about this, we're the largest user of this technology in the state of Indiana, and we're the 10th largest in the country. Oh, wow. So we've installed 55 or 56 machines and plan to do more. It allows customers to do banking when they want to bank.
Right.
Instead of have to wait till we open the door at 8:30 or close at 5:30 or 6. We're 7 to 7, same day posting, which makes it really nice for a lot of businesses.
So has banking changed in the time you've been in there?
Oh, banking's dramatically changed. It's no different. Banking is having the industry in and of itself is seeing the same disruptive things take place with technology that everybody else is in their business lives. And we continue to see the opportunities with the technology. And today, banking is not as much about the brick and mortar as having all of the capacity to let people technologically do banking whenever they want to, wherever they want to. But I would tell you it's still a people business. You got to have the right quality people to be successful with it.
What are some of the most important lessons you've learned in your career?
You know, a couple things. One, I mentioned earlier I played a lot of athletics, and I think you learn how to be a team player. You learn how there's always got to be somebody that's going to, make the final decision and tell you what to do. But at the same token, everybody's got to be on the same page to work together.
Of course.
And I think as a leader, you also have to recognize what people are as individuals. You got to treat them like they're individuals. You can't treat them like they're an employee and you're the person in charge.
Right.
To me, it's how do you work together and make them better. Everybody has a family. Everybody has brothers and sisters, moms and dads, children, grandchildren.
Yeah.
And, getting an opportunity to learn that about the people you work with every day is pretty exciting. And so I think that's a lesson that always remember, you're no better than the other person, and you need to be at the level that they are when you're working with them.
So would you say your work environment would you say it's open then? Is it important to maintain an open environment within Star Financial, or do you have close relations with the people around you?
I would say our leadership team is a very close-knit family, even though we're not all the same members of the same family.
Right.
And we preach culturally that we are a family, and we want you to treat each other respectfully and to treat each other like your brothers and sisters and your family members. That's just part of our culture. Maybe that's the benefit of being a privately held company and family owned.
Sure.
Today we've got 12 other family members in the company, besides 5 of us that have been in 30 plus years each. And those 12 are showing a very bright future for the company and how they work together and how they work with their other peers.
So how do you feel about the younger generations? I guess you could say the millennials coming in. Are you excited to see that dynamic shift, or what are you worried about? What are you looking forward to? And you can be harsh.
No, I would tell you that same thing I would tell anybody else. They are so much better prepared than we were to take on the jobs. They have information at their fingertips that none of us had growing up. We learned a lot from experience by making the wrong decisions.
Sure.
You figured out what you did wrong, you went back and corrected it. For them, it's get on a keyboard, Google it, find out, do all your homework, do all the research. They come in so well prepared to have a topic discussion about direction and what we ought to do. It's an interesting dynamic. And then they turn and look at the 3 older ones and they'll say, okay, what do you guys think? And it's kind of like, well, you've done all the homework, tell us what we should do. And they're like, yeah, but you've got the experience, you need to tell us what we shouldn't do,
right,
so we don't get this wrong. So it's exciting because they're so talented and they don't want to make mistakes. And it's interesting because, as I've said already, experience is the best teacher. Making the mistake is how you figured out what you did wrong.
Exactly.
So sometimes you got to kind of, as my partner says, give them enough rope, but don't let them hang themselves.
No, you don't want that.
But it's exciting to have them around. It's fun.
Well, good. Is there anything you're seeing, I don't want to say lacking, but is there anything you really want to make sure that they're coming out of college now? And is there things that you're seeing that maybe they don't have that you kind of want to see in them? Or do you think they're well prepared for the world in general?
I guess back to my sports analogies.
Sure.
If you've never played on a team before, you don't know what it's like to have teammates. So I would always encourage young people, it doesn't matter the sport, whether you're good, bad, or whatever, but learn what it's like to win and lose, and sometimes I wonder if all these technology games that these kids play, does it really ever teach them that you have to be a good loser sometimes? That's how you learn to be partners and work together and figure things out. The human side's probably the element that I would say, if you sit down and talk to some of the young people, they're extremely intelligent, know a lot of the factual data, know the background of the industry, and then you start talking about their personal lives and ask them some other questions about them as individuals, and you can see they haven't really been engaged enough.
How so?
I think the technology sometimes overshadows their ability to engage. I mean, and to society's totally different today. Okay, I grew up when we left the back door unlocked. You walk across the street to play in the ground. You know, parents let kids wander around on the streets. We all had fun together. You could go up and down alleys. It's not that kind of a world today, and I understand that. So people are very more secure for their families and their children and watch out for things. There's just a lot more things that can happen. But I would say if I was a young person, it would be, you know, get active in some social activities or athletic things that get you an opportunity to round out your personality and your career.
So just to play a little more off of teams and being part of teams and kind of building that character, how important it is to have someone that's a coach that's tough on you. Did you have anyone growing up in your obviously in sports that you had like a tough coach that you kind of didn't like at the time, but he taught you a lot?
I didn't have a really tough coach. But I would tell you my mom was harder on me than any coach that I could have asked for. You didn't want to have a bad game and ride home in the car with your mother. My sister and I would tell you that was a great story because she would all of a sudden, she'd go back to every play and every mistake you made, and you'd have to rethink what you did and figure it out.
Of course.
But, you know, I had coaches that were teachers. You know, that's the important thing about a coach is, are you teaching a young person something to do better than what they did the day they started? And that's what a good coach is to me, is a good teacher.
I want to know if you have any advice for small business owners, students also. I know we kind of touched on them already, and entrepreneurs that they should really be focused on, or things a nugget of advice that you think would go a long way for them.
One of the things small business owners today have better tools and know the information much better than what they did. But I would tell you one thing my father always reminded me. He says, if you're going to get into a business, the one thing you as an owner should always remember is you got to pay yourself. And a lot of times they forget that they're on the payroll as well because they're trying to make something grow and they're trying to make the business work and they've got employees and they forget about taking care of themselves simultaneously. And they kind of go burn out or, you know, they don't succeed because they've kind of left out that expense, you might say, to what would make them a more successful individual.
Well, it's almost part of the culture. I mean, watch Shark Tank, for instance. They'll tell you, don't pay yourself, sleep on the floor with 8 roommates. You know, you got to you got to live, you got to fight, you got to breathe it. So do you kind of disagree with that mantra?
No, I think that's the work hard, play hard. Right. But I'm talking about the numbers, and when you do things, build those into your forecast, build those into what you need in order to get revenue. The last thing you want to do is to have personal financial trouble because you didn't think through making sure that as the company was growing, that everybody was being successful.
And needless to say, I assume that Star Financial isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Not that I know of, unless you know something I don't. Sam.
I do not.
But I would tell you, we have a very strong vision for the future. The next generation, the group of them, we let them write the vision statement. And the first line is, we will stay independent. And I always tell our employees, you want to stay independent, we got to stay profitable.
Gotcha.
So,
no, of course.
And customers are the only thing that matters in our business.
Can you tell me a little more about maybe some shortcomings you had in school at Notre Dame, things you would give some advice for a student to stay on track instead of getting distracted?
I would think, again, it's kind of like taking an inventory of your own skills. There were things that I was very good at, which were primarily in math and accounting and business analytics, but I wasn't probably the best at concentrating for long periods of time in the sciences or primarily in the English and writing habits. Those were not my best subjects, you might say. And I think so probably the advice is, look at yourself and be kind of blunt about what is your weaknesses and work on the things that you're not good at. There's nothing wrong with growing your strengths, but at the same time, you got to figure out, if you're going to have certain weaknesses, then you better surround yourself with the right people that make those weaknesses go away. So it does allow you to fully function at what you do best all the time.
So how important is schooling? I feel like my generation or millennials are really focused on they have to go to school, they have to get their master's, they have to get a PhD. Do you think that's almost a little too overstated? Or what do you like to see within Star Financial?
What I like to see is someone who can look at an issue or look at a problem and then go and figure out the information that surrounds that problem and come back with solutions. Do you have to have a PhD? Do you have to have a master's? Master's probably takes you to another discipline level, which allows you the ability to be better at what you're trying to accomplish and maybe set your sights a little higher because you've broadened your appearance of what you're looking for. One of the things that I've learned that the younger millennials have is they believe in process.
Yeah.
And some of them believe in process so much that there's no gray area in making decisions.
Right.
And I would tell you that human behavior is probably the most gray area you're going to deal with in your lifetime. So you should never think that everything's black and white to an answer or to a response you give, but also be willing to say, hey, I got to be flexible here because not everybody's talents are going to work the same way, and markets are going to behave differently.
Of course.
You know, I mean, we had a great run in the market here in the first 11 months in 2018, and then boom. What happened in the month of December? And nobody really knows why it happened, but that doesn't mean you all of a sudden stop doing what you're doing every day, does it?
Right.
So you got to be willing to roll with the punches. And I would say the younger generation is a much more disciplined group and do like process. And I would have to say I didn't grow up with a group of business people in the banking world when we started that were very disciplined. It was always, hey, can we fix this? What do we go do? And go do it.
Right.
You know, instead of, oh, wait a minute, I didn't talk to you and you didn't get this and you didn't put everything down on paper. And it's kind of like, no, but we got the answer right. Let's get going.
Yeah, it's like, let's fix this. You know, instead of that process, it's more of a, you know, we're going to learn from it. It's that experience.
But there's nothing wrong with the process. And
of course.
And we're learning, at least I'm learning, let me say this. I'm learning in order to motivate younger people, if you don't have processes and you don't have transparencies and you don't have the communication skills, they're not going to respond.
No.
And that's really a lesson for people of my generation to take away, is saying, hey, things have changed, times have changed. The tools that they have today are much better than we had, and we've got to change our habits, no different than we're asking them to be a part of us.
It's a highly informed society now. You know,
Yes.
Consumers are highly informed. They know, they'll research your company before doing any kind of business with you. So it's harder to navigate.
It's usually a simple question in an interview.
Yeah.
If the person being interviewed hasn't done their homework about you, you can ask that question pretty quick and find out they're not prepared.
No.
And if they're not prepared, do I really want them on my staff?
Exactly.
So that would be always a good lead-in question. If you don't do your homework on the company that you're interviewing for, you're going to be on the short end.
Yeah.
The interview might not last very long.
Well, of course. I think you need to research the people you're going to be working for. It shows you took the time and day to actually, you know, want to learn about them. So yeah, Jim, I really appreciate you coming out today.
This has been a really fun time. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Anytime. Anything else you want to touch on, or?
No, just like to say thank you and having the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.